This video is for full arch dentists who need higher quality consults. They're tired of dealing with patients who have no chance of affording the solutions that we love to provide. Because the reality is, full arch implants and all-on-4 are expensive. These are premium solutions for people with major problems. And sure, you could try to play the cheap arch game and reduce your fees lower and lower so that more people can afford it. That's one way to go, but it's a race to the bottom. There's always somebody that will do an arch for a little bit cheaper than you. And at some point, most of us choose to value our expertise and our training and not go after the discount shoppers of the full arch world and all of the headaches that come with that business model. But then we're left with another problem. How much time just this week have you and your team wasted talking to patients who are never going to be able to afford the treatment? Think of the marketing dollars that you're wasting, the team salaries, the time, the stress, the frustration, all spent on consults that were doomed from the very beginning. The conventional wisdom is that we should never diagnose a patient's wallet. We were taught that it's not fair and it's unethical to talk about money with patients. A lot of people say it's disrespectful to talk about money with your patients and that you should educate them and build value. By showing your expertise and all the things you can do for your patient, they'll come to value it more and find a way to pay for it. But in the full arch world, that's nonsense. I don't know where you live, but in my area, there are just not that many people around who can afford anything that costs in the tens of thousands of dollars, not to mention $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. So in my opinion, it's disrespectful not to screen these patients for costs. Otherwise, you waste their time and their emotional energy waving an amazing solution in front of their nose and then snatching it away at the last second when the patient realizes how much this is actually going to cost them. And all their hopes and dreams are dashed because there's zero chance of them ever coming up with that money, no matter how badly they want it or need it. And from the dentist point of view, it wastes our limited resources. We only have so much time, manpower, chairs in our office, and mental energy to commit to our patients. And it's draining and frustrating dealing with people who just can't afford this type of care. So today, I offer you a solution. This is the 5-step affordability screening gauntlet. It's the exact protocol that we use in our office to filter out 80% of people who can't afford treatment before they get to see their doctor, leaving you, the doctor, with highly qualified, highly motivated patients who are ready to say yes. Before I implemented these steps in my office, it wasn't uncommon that 4 out of 5 consults that I saw were horrible quality. They were wonderful people who had the need, and I wish I could help them, but they just didn't have access to any money. When we're talking about $30,000 or $60,000 treatment plans, these are people with negative net worth. There's nothing to borrow against. There's no savings. There's no room on their credit cards. There's no chance of them getting a loan from the bank or a third-party financer. It's not a matter of desire or need or us doing a better consult. They just don't have the money. But now it's the opposite. After implementing these 5 screening steps, 4 out of 5 patients are great consults now. Sure, occasionally a patient will sneak through who doesn't have the means to afford the treatment, but almost always they do. And imagine how much easier, smoother, less stressful, and more effective your consults would be if your patients already knew and accepted the cost ahead of time. And that's the point of these screening steps. If we haven't met before, my name is Dr. Michael Ling. My practice is focused exclusively on implants. On this channel, we only talk about marketing and case acceptance for full arch implants and all-on-4. This is our full arch funnel, which represents all the different areas of opportunity that you can optimize to do more arches. And when we're talking about the 5-step affordability screening gauntlet that we run patients through before they meet the doctor, we're implementing these steps at multiple points in the funnel. Now, we're not even going to talk about how the ads can get you higher or lower quality consults just based on the wording. We're going to focus on the landing page, in particular the offer, the lead nurture, and then in the consults as well, how we can introduce steps at these different phases of the funnel. So by the time the doctor gets involved, the patients have been screened for quality and affordability. Before we dive into this, let me clarify that this isn't about being elitist or only wanting to deal with rich patients. It's about respecting the patient enough that we're not leading them down a path that we know they can't afford. I don't know about you, but in our practice, I want patients to leave feeling good about their visit. And that's the same for the patient who accepts $0 of treatment as it is for the patient who accepts $60,000 worth of treatment. I don't want patients leaving the office feeling worse physically, mentally, emotionally than they did when they came in. So this type of screening is not just about respecting your time, but it's also about respecting the patients. The patients that I meet who don't make it through the gauntlet are grateful that we were transparent and honest with them, because almost every other dentist is doing the opposite. They're giving the patient false hope. They're dangling the consult in front of the patient's nose, saying, you got to come in, you got to talk to the doctor, you got to get an exam, and then we'll tell you the cost. And whether you have a lot of money or no money, nobody likes their time being wasted. And personally, I know I wouldn't appreciate jumping through all the hoops that most dentists make you go through in order to get the price at the very end, and then realizing that there's no way that I can ever afford this. And now I just got my hopes up and wasted all this time and energy when you could have just told me at the beginning about how much it and saved everybody all the hassle. So in our practice, what we do to minimize these problems is we set price expectations early in the process. That way we avoid the painful sticker shock at the end of the consult. My philosophy is that I want my patients to know and be mentally prepared for the cost before they meet the doctor. That way, when the time comes to meet the doctor, their focus is on which solution is right for me, not how much is this going to cost. We've already got that out of the way. On the other hand, we don't want to hammer cost and affordability too early in the process, or at the wrong times or in the wrong tone. Also turn off a lot of patients. It has to be done strategically and respectfully. Imagine you were traveling somewhere and you were in your comfy airplane clothes, your sweats and your hoodie, and when you landed, you were starving and immediately headed to a nice restaurant. And when you sat down at the restaurant and the server handed you a menu, and they made some assumptions and said, yes, Mr. Smith, I understand you're looking for a steak. Now you do realize that these steaks often cost $50, $80, or even $200. Are you okay with that? Are you sure you can afford to eat here? How would that make you feel? I would feel disrespected that the server made assumptions about me and implied that I couldn't afford the meal that I was about to order. It's the same with our patients. We don't want to disrespect them by giving them false hope for something they can't afford. On the other hand, we don't want to disrespect them by assuming that they can't afford it and turning away people that would otherwise be great patients. So let's dive right into this. I'm going to show you the 5-step affordability screening gauntlet that we use in our office to get highly qualified, highly motivated patients in front of the doctor. Patients have to pass through each of these gates before they meet the doctor, ensuring that only the most highly qualified and highly motivated patients end up actually meeting the doctor. The first step in our gauntlet is the price guide. Our implant price guide is a 15-page PDF document that we send to patients before they come for their appointment. It handles all of the most frequently asked questions that we get, including common objections. And we know the most common question and objection that patients are going to have is, how much is this going to cost? So this is all laid out very clearly in this document, but also in a way that uses our principles of anchoring and contrast and financial presentation to give our prices context and make them feel like a great value. So the wording and the message are critical. Here's an example of one of the pages in the price guide where we compare multiple options for people looking for full mouth implants, using our principles of contrast and anchoring. So the order of these options is very intentional because we're using option 1 as the anchor, and then option 2 is our all-on-4. Option 3 is our reverse anchor, and then option 4 is there just to show patients a comparison against a complete denture. If you're not familiar with the anchor principle, check out some of our other videos where we go into this in a lot more detail. But basically, it's a way to pre-frame our treatment options to make our preferred treatment option feel like a no-brainer, obvious choice, and a great value, no matter what the dollar amount is attached to that option. Here's another page of the price guide where we're comparing the old way of doing full mouth implants with the new way, which is the all-in-4 protocol. So the price guide is the first step in the screening protocol. And in theory, if all of our patients read this price guide, then we wouldn't have any problems. But that's just not how it works in reality. We know from our stats that if we email this to our patients before their consult, about 60 to 70% of people open the email and the PDF attachment. So that still leaves 30 to 40% of people who never see the price guide. And of the people who open it, there's no way of knowing how many people actually read it, how many people truly understand it. So that's why we have to introduce additional steps in the screening protocol. The second step in our affordability screening gauntlet is the automated email flow. So I said before that when a patient books an appointment for a consultation, they get the price guide as a PDF attachment in an email. And that's just the first email. What actually happens is that triggers a sequence of automated emails. And these emails are being sent before the consultation. The purpose of these emails is three things. One is we're building trust because we're sending them valuable information ahead of their appointment that answers the questions that we know they're going to have. That sets us up as the trusted authority because no other dentist is doing this for them. Everybody else is just spamming them with sales messages. And what we're doing is actually providing value by giving real answers to the questions that we know that they have in their minds. The second thing we're doing is we're adding social proof. And we do this by sending these patients things like case studies and before and after photos and testimonials from people who have been through the same thing that they're about to go through. And then lastly, of course, we're screening. And one of the big things we're screening for is affordability. So in our sequence, there's something like 50 emails that go out, starting from the time they book their consultation, and these emails continue forever, even after their consultation. Here's an example of one of the emails that directly addresses cost. The subject of the email is something like straight answers to your questions about what implants really cost. And part of the email looks like this. It says question number 1, how much will it cost to fix my smile with dental implants? And I'll read you the answer. It's impossible to give you an exact quote without understanding your specific situation, your current health, and your goals. However, I can give you a general idea. And this is all patients are asking for, is just give me a ballpark of what I can expect to spend before I commit to all this time and energy of meeting you in person. Most patients who come to our practice for dental implant solutions spend in the tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how bad their dental problems are. For full mouth all-in-4 same-day implants, the cost primarily depends on how much bone you have. And now we get into some ballpark costs for full arch implants using our anchoring principles. If bone grafting was required, in some cases, if there isn't enough bone to support the implants, bone grafting might be necessary before implant placement. This typically involves a referral to a specialist, and the total cost, including specialist fees and fees, could range from $60,000 to $70,000. But if you qualify for same-day implants with no bone grafting, the good news is that Dr. X specializes in techniques to often avoid bone grafting. If you're a candidate for this, we can handle the entire procedure in our office with one doctor. This significantly reduces the cost with a typical fee in the range of $27,000 to $30,000. Now, this fee we quoted of $27,000 to $30,000 is actually a little bit higher than our actual fee, and that's done on purpose. We want patients to have a bit of a higher expectation for fee before they meet the doctor. And that way, when we meet them in person, we can give them the good news that it's actually not going to be $30,000. It's only going to be $25,000. So if you're going to quote fees ahead of time, even if they're ballparks, make sure you quote a little bit high. Another question that we answer in the email flow is regarding payment plans. Many of the patients who are getting $60,000 treatment plans can't pay for it all at once, so they often want to take advantage of payment plans. But what I find is if you don't handle this question properly, patients have false expectations about what a payment plan looks like. They think that it's going to cost them $100 a month or $200 a month, and that's just not realistic. So we're trying to set realistic expectations ahead of time, and here's how we do it. The question is, do you offer financing or payment plans? And the answer is yes. If you find a treatment plan that you love and you'd like Dr. X to help you achieve your new smile, part of my job is to work with you to find a payment arrangement that fits your budget. Most patients who go this way put down an initial payment of about half their total fee and then finance the rest over 6 or 12 months. Once we get to that point, you and I can play with the numbers and find something that works for you. So we want to set the expectation that, yeah, we do payment plans, but you still have to come up with a pretty nice chunk of money. And this is over 6 or 12 months. We're not financing this over 5 years or 10 years. And of course, you have to adapt this wording to be realistic for your patients. But the point remains that you want to set realistic expectations and not have patients come in that are expecting these crazy payment plans. The gate number 3 is lead nurture. And this is separate from the email flow, because at the same time that the patient is getting an automated sequence of emails, our human staff is also reaching out to the patient to answer their questions and to qualify them. And like I said before, our patients appreciate the honesty and transparency of being able to get answers before the consult. Now, the key is your human staff has to be highly trained to answer these questions in a way that still leaves the door open for a consultation. You don't want to give away too much information with the wrong messaging or the wrong phrasing that scares these patients away, and they think that they have all the information that they need, and there's no reason to come in to meet the doctor. And inevitably, when our staff reach out to these patients, one of the questions that's going to come up is, how much is this going to cost? And our staff reinforce the same messages that we've already used in previous steps. They tell the patient, that's a great question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an email with a price guide in it. And that price guide has all the information you're looking for, including a comparison of different ways to fix your smile and their associated costs. So that's one more way of getting the price guide in front of these eyeballs. Or if the patient asks more directly about costs, then our human staff will answer that question the same way we did in these emails. They'll use this script right here. And the beauty of this script here is that it leaves the door open for a doc consult. Because now the patient is wondering, how do I know if I need bone grafting? And of course, the only way to find out is to meet the doctor. And I hope that you can see how all of these steps work together. Because imagine how easy your consult would be if the patient already knows ahead of time how much it's going to cost if they need bone grafting, how much it's going to cost if they don't need bone grafting. And now their focus is on you, the doctor. And they're no longer wondering, how much is this going to cost? How much of a discount can I get? Should I shop around for someone cheaper? Now they're thinking, I really hope this doctor can help me with no bone grafting. Your consult becomes a slam dunk. Step 4 in our gauntlet is we require a credit card on file in order to see the doctor. Now, just to clarify, our consultations are complimentary. We don't charge the patient anything, including for the doctor time, the scans, anything. It's completely free. We also don't charge any sort of cancellation or no-show fee. And there's no threat of charging the patient these fees. We simply ask for a credit card in order to hold the patient's time with the doctor. And there's really 2 reasons that we do this. One is, do you have a credit card? Because there are some patients who we ask for a credit card and they say, oh, I don't have a credit card. And that might be a little bit of a red flag when they're shopping for treatment that might cost them $60,000. Do they not have a credit card because they don't believe in credit cards? Or do they not have a credit card because they can't get a credit card? It's another screening step. The second reason why we ask for a credit card, though, is it's a test of their trust. Do they trust us enough to give this information? Because if they don't trust us for something simple like this, that's common all the time when you're making a hotel reservation, booking airline tickets, even making many restaurant reservations, if they don't trust us that much, then they're likely not going to become good patients. We want patients who trust us, who see us as an authority, and who are compliant with the way that we do things. So getting this credit card on file is one more screening step in our gauntlet to ensure that only the most highly qualified and highly motivated patients get through and actually meet the doctor. And the last step in our gauntlet is the tens of thousands script. And this happens when the patient is actually in the office meeting with the treatment coordinator. In our office, the patient meets with the treatment coordinator first, who does some initial questioning, screening, getting to know the patient, taking any necessary records, and then the treatment coordinator decides whether or not to call the doctor in based on the quality of the consult. So there's still one more opportunity to turn these consults away before we commit doctor time to them. And the tens of thousands script goes something like this. And after an appropriate amount of time getting to know the patient, understanding what their problems are, what they're frustrated with, what kinds of things they've tried in the past and why they haven't worked, and what they're hoping for in the future, the treatment coordinator will say something like this. Okay, Mrs. Jones, now that I understand more about what you're going through and what you're looking for, I'm just starting to put together some ideas in my head that will get you exactly what you want. Just so you know, solutions like this can cost in the thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Is that something you're interested in learning more about? So now we have the opportunity to gauge the patient's reaction to the message that this could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. And we can get the reaction both in their words and their body language. And that will tell us a lot about how qualified they are and how likely it is that they're going to be able to afford something that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And when we use the tens of thousands script, there's typically 3 different reactions. One reaction is the patient says something like, yeah, that's about what I thought. And this is the best answer. It means the patient has been doing their homework. It means they were compliant and they read our messaging. And this is going to be a slam dunk case. The second thing that patients sometimes say is tens of thousands of dollars. Can you tell me exactly how much it's going to be? Because there's a big difference between $5,000 and $50,000. And if the patient gives us this response, we proceed with the rest of the consult. This is probably the most common response that we get. And a lot of these patients will turn out to be great consults. The third response, though, is the one we're looking for because we're trying to screen out people who have zero chance of affording this. And these are the ones that you can tell, both by what they say and their body language, that we're just wasting everybody's time. They'll say something like, there's no way I can afford that. Maybe if I won the lottery. Or they'll say something like 10,000. There's no way. I was hoping for 1,000. And they say some dollar figure that we know is just completely unrealistic. For these patients, we're polite to them, we're nice to them, but we gently redirect them. Instead of meeting the doctor for a consultation, we'll do something like a regular new patient exam and check for cavities and get them in for cleaning. Or we'll refer them to another provider that's more appropriate for them. Or we'll treat it almost like an emerge exam, where the doctor will assess the most urgent problem and just try to get them comfortable and out of pain and maybe buy them some time until they are able to afford more comprehensive solutions. So that's our 5-step affordability screening gauntlet that all patients have to get through all 5 of these gates before they meet the doctor. And when that happens, you get a whole bunch of patients who make appointments for consults, but by the time they get through all 5 of these gates, only about the top 20% of those patients actually meet the doctor. So now, as doctors, we're not wasting our time with 80% of people who are very nice, they're wonderful people, and they may really want help, but they just have no hope of affording this level of dentistry. And instead, we can focus our attention on the top 20% of patients who are the most highly motivated and highly qualified, and therefore the most likely to actually proceed with this life-changing type of dentistry. Now, if you've watched this far in the video, there's probably some questions that are popping up in your head about this process. And one of them might be, isn't this unethical or judgmental? And I would say no. In my opinion, it's more ethical and more respectful to be upfront and transparent about our fees and not lead someone on or give them false hope. The second question I sometimes get about this type of process is, aren't we going to lose some good patients along the way? And the answer is probably yes, but still the benefits of not wasting your time on all these garbage consults far outweighs losing the small percentage of patients who might have been good, but somehow get caught up in this gauntlet and didn't make it all the way through. And some who initially don't make it through, if they are truly highly qualified and highly motivated, they'll find a way to get through later on. And lastly, you might be concerned that this is complicated. And the truth is that it seems like a lot, but this is a system. You get it set up once, and then it saves you hours every single week. and not just the time, but the stress and frustration of dealing with poorly qualified patients. Imagine how much more effective and fun your consults would be if all of your patients had made it through this gauntlet before even sitting in your chair. So that's our 5-step affordability screening gauntlet. Implement this in your office, and you're going to see higher quality consults, drastically reduced wasted doctor and staff time, and much higher case acceptance for full arch implants.